Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. How are you all today? Good. Let me see. Anyone who is, you look new. Tell us your name. Darren. Welcome, welcome. And how did you got to know about the Facebook? Okay. So is it from an ad or just okay, good. And what are you doing? Okay, good, like me. Unemployed is good, yeah. Yeah, it's good. Then you are free to do what you need to do. A lot of people are employed and they lost themselves in employment. Yeah. As a Singaporean or anyone actually who stays in the city, grew up in a country, we sometimes get too caught up with the flow, We think that when a person is born, they must go to school, finish your education, find a job, get a partner, settle down, have kids. Before that, get a house, yeah, settle down, have kids, and so on and so forth. And for the most part, that's what most people do, isn't it? And sometimes we get so used to doing that, we get so used to everybody around us doing that, we forget that maybe that's just one way of living our life, Yeah. And perhaps even more important, that whether we are employed or not, maybe it's more important to be happy. Yeah. There was one year I was in Malacca. I was invited about, I think, two years back. 2 years back, and invited by a student to share the Heart Sutra with the whole family over the weekend. And the afternoon when I arrived, I met with some of the relatives. So I chat with them, and one of them has a child, I think secondary school, yeah, probably around there. And so I asked him, like, what do you want to be in future? I think he said, I want to be happy. I thought, that's good. Yeah. Most of us, when we ask children what they want to be in future, we think it should be some model answer, right? In terms of their occupation. Yeah. And children at some age, they get used to that also. They get conditioned by us. Yeah. Then we forget that being human, having an occupation is actually not necessarily, not how do I put it? To say that it's not a necessity or essential seems to be dismissing the whole thing. Because after all, most of you are working, isn't it? Right? Perhaps it's more about how we relate to it. So welcome. Darren. Let's see, who else is new with us? Casey is new with the SGC Live. Yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't have introduced your name. Come introduce yourself. Would you like to tell us a bit more? Yes. Right. Yeah, so about 1-2 weeks back, Casey contacted me through one of the Dharma brother, one of the students, Sam. I think through another friend, Emily, right? Yeah. So then in the course, Casey was sharing that when she came back, then she had to be put under the 14 days stay home thing. Yeah. So this is the new norm. And so when you go back, you have to as in Monday tomorrow. You have to 3-day quarantine for $2,000. Did I hear $2,000? Did I hear the Canadian dollars? So when before you go back or after you go back? Oh. Oh. Wow. Wow. Okay. So you'll be quite a pro in swab test. Yeah, so I just did mine a few days back. For me, it was quite okay actually. Yeah, I tell some students, I think maybe because I'm quite a pro nose digger. Yeah, so when they did the swab test, I was like, okay, oh, is that it? You know, I've already opened up the channel for them. Yeah, for me, it was in a way voluntary. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because we are starting the class and I was having a bit of mucus. So I wanted to be clear. So the doctor arranged for me to get the swab test. It was rather structured. You know, the person who was administering it, she took quite a while to explain to me all the things. I think that to the doctor I must have appeared overly enthusiastic. Yeah, he was like, okay, we will need to let you take the swab test. I said, yes, okay, good. But the swab test was over before I know it. Yeah, one was the oral. Yeah, they scraped the throat, and then the other two was one on each side. But it was okay. And I was sharing with some students that perhaps we should have it done for all religious workers. Yeah, because we would encounter a lot of different individuals on a regular basis. Yeah. So when will it be heading back? Okay. Keep us posted. Keep us posted. Welcome. And who else? Some of you I've been seeing on Zoom, so I have lost. It's been a year since we. So Choi Kwan is new, right? Yes. Welcome, Choi Kwan. Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh. Oh. Sadhu. Good. Welcome. So let me see. The rest are the renewed season parking holder. So how about Saikyang? Saikyang is new or old? New, right? Yeah, new lah. Like, come introduce yourself. Yeah, say hello to Saikyang. Hello. Yeah. So introduce yourself. Yeah. Is yeah. How long have you been with the library? 1990 what? Way back. Wow. This one is long service award already. Yeah, 2 more years. Did you say 1993? So 2 more years, you'll be 30 years. 20, 30, 30, 30 years. Yeah, 2 more years, 30. So 2 more years we give. I cannot give. I must ask Bante to give you. If we invite Bante to give you long service award. Yeah. So it's good to have Sai Kiang join us in the SGC and also in the Xiaopusa volunteer group. Welcome to SGC. And to the rest, welcome again to the live version. This one is live. This one is Lagi live. Yes. For speaker allowed, confirm. So I take out on advisement from my volunteer. Yeah, allowed to take out. Okay, okay. So we have the precedence by the MP. So anything, not that we want to incriminate the MP. Yeah, but I mean not to make a joke of this, but we try to follow the rules, and the purpose is so that we protect each other. Yeah, in a way, you can look at the mask like our precepts. Yeah, if we all maintain our precepts, then everybody is safe. Of course, I take out mask doesn't mean I don't maintain precepts. So today's topic, mind, me, mine, and myself, or no self in our life. Yeah. So the subtopic is on karma. So there are a few things I want to just touch on. It's probably familiar for most of us, right? But so take it as a refresher. For some of you who find it fairly new, feel free to raise your hand, and then I will answer if it's okay to answer at that point. So two main things. First thing is self or no self. Yeah? The second thing is karma. And then later we will explore, okay, so what's the link between them? Once in a while, I have to look here, look there, because the life, yeah, because when I do it at my own place, the webcam is right in front of me, and that's the only thing I can look at. So it gets a bit of getting used to, yeah. Because for the past 1 year, I've been talking to myself. Talking to imaginary students. Yeah, and one of the appreciation I had as a result was all those DJ, serious. The DJs for their whole career, they are just in that, and furthermore in that studio room, and they're just talking to themselves. But when you listen to them on the radio, it feels like they're really talking to you. Yeah. 我们接下来我欢迎下位观众啊，说，哇，听众到观众。So self or no self, so self or no self. This part of the teaching is rather intriguing for many people, not just Buddhists, not just non-Buddhists, practically for anybody. The first time most people encounter this teaching, it kind of go over the head for most people. If it doesn't go over your head, it probably means you didn't fully appreciate what he's talking about. Why? Because from our languages, to the way we interact with one another, to our very awareness, it seems to indicate that there is the I and the you, right? But yet, this teaching kind of goes against this and says, well, think again. You know, it challenges the very notion of our existence. If you think about it, in the Chinese language, 你我他, right? In English, you, me, he, they, she, he, and so on. And all these are references to indicate object and subject, right? And does it mean that this teaching of no self is saying that there's no I, you, and me? Is it? If there's none, then who is listening to this very question? Who is saying this very talk? Yeah? Who is speaking? But for that matter, who is the one who is listening? Yeah, who? Think about that. Whether you are listening online or live in the class. Yeah, who? Like if you were to introduce yourself to others, the first thing, as we witnessed just now with the new participants, one of the first things that is introduced is your name, right? So then let me ask you, say at this point in time, now you hear a sound, right? And some of you turn around to look at it. Try to recall at the point when you heard a bit of a voice or something, and then you heard some commotion and you turn around. At that point in time, who was the one who got intrigued? Like let's say Ong Chit, okay? Did you turn around just now? No, not saying it's wrong, but taking that as an example. Like when there was a sound and Ong Chit turned around, now as a matter of post-event, and we analyze, we say Ong Chit turned around. But at that moment, for Ong Chit, if you were to ask Ong Chit to try to recall as clearly, as succinct as possible, when you heard the door open, did you think Ong Chit heard it? Yeah. Did you think that Ong Chit, the NUS undergrad, heard it? What is your major? Econs. Do you think the Econs undergrad heard it? No, right? So who heard it? It feels like it's I heard it. So how is this I related to the other I's? When we introduce ourselves, are you introducing you to that person? How do you introduce yourself? Like if he were to introduce like the rest earlier, it would be, I am Ong Chit, right? What else would you be introducing? And what would you be doing now? You are a student. So just now we said, would he be thinking Ong Chit heard the sound? He said no. Would you be saying a student heard the sound? No also. What else? How else will you be introducing yourself? Econs. And so you see where I'm going. And yet, while we introduce ourselves in all these different ways, when we heard the sound, we, at least in this case, it seems like for Ong Chit, he didn't experience it as the student who heard the sound, the econ student who heard the sound, and so on. But maybe it's just Ong Chit. How about the rest? How many of you turned around just now? How about Cadell? When you heard the sound, did you try to recall as much as possible? And it can go anywhere. Okay, it can go this way or that way. All right. Did you hear as, oh, Cadell, the interior designer, heard the sound? Yeah. How did you experience it? So there is a sound. And what is that sound? And then who turned around? You all don't laugh. Now we are asking Ong Chit and Kadel, then you all laugh. When we ask you, you also had no answer. There was once we were at the City Beach Resort and we were having a retreat. And in the midst of the retreat, that was pre-COVID, just for records. So we got everybody to do in a way like a nature walk. Yeah, we walked the trail, and there was one part of the Labrador Park where there's this platform overlooking the beach area, and then there was the boat in the distance, and so on. And as we were sitting, and after a while we finished the sitting, then I asked them, yeah, when the boat bellow, who heard it? When the wind blow, who heard it? When you heard the snap, who heard it? Yeah. Is it I, the accountant, heard it? Is it I, the student, heard it? Is it I, the manager, heard it? Is it I, the father, the mother, the son, the daughter, the whoever heard it? The ear heard it. So why didn't the ear turn? Very good answer. Yeah, but was that what happened? His answer is correct, right? Agree? Those who are alive, yeah, it's correct, isn't it? But is that how we experience it? Huh? Are we conscious of the ear sending a signal? We're not conscious also. So while Cadel's answer is factual, yeah, scientifically that's the case, yeah. No one is going to say, no, I heard with my head, right? There was one class we were talking about the six senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. And then I was highlighting that eyes can only see visible form, ears hear sound, and so on. Then one of the students, some of them can see the head. Oh, okay, win already. You win. You win. Yeah. And in fact, I myself, I've seen a documentary about some supposed psychic people who can, like, let's say, read the book without the eyes. So just like that. Like that. Oh, Panatipata Viramani. Can. I don't know. Can you do that? Cannot. Dharma is for most people. Most people cannot. So most people cannot, then we put them aside. Okay, those who can, we put them aside first. So quite interesting, isn't it? While on a daily basis, when we comment on something, we comment using I, you, him, and so on, right? As a matter of fact. Like if you were to now consider what happened earlier, we would say, oh, some people came in and there was some sound and some students heard the sound. As a result, they turned, right? And all seems to be okay. But as we ask a few of you, yeah, when you try to describe what really happened, it doesn't seem to gel. Maybe it gel at a certain level, okay? I don't want to be presumptuous here to say that it is like this or like that. And that's the thing about the teaching of no self. When we learn it as a teaching, in some cases, it seems to be declared simply as a fact. Yeah? Impermanent, suffering, no self. But if you look at many of the suttas itself, the Buddha actually positioned it as a series of questions. The questions he would ask is form permanent or impermanent? And then, of course, the monks would reply, impermanent. The Buddha would further ask, is form which is impermanent subject to change? And they would reply, is subject to change. And then the Buddha would further ask them, is form which is impermanent subject to change, subject to suffering? That means, can it lead to suffering? Yeah, given that it is impermanent, that is changing. Yeah, and they consider, and then they said yes. So up to this point, it is not any declaration of anything. Yeah, of course, it doesn't mean that the Buddha didn't know. The Buddha has observed, but the way he teach, yeah, the way he taught was not simply just spoon feeding, yeah, or just shoveling the teachings as a dogma, as a doctrine, but rather he get people to think for themselves. And from there, then the Buddha asked the what do you call it? The killer punch, if you will, yeah, which is something that is impermanent, subject to change, subject to suffering, fit, worthy to be considered mine, me, or myself. Does it match with what you think of as self? In much the same way as I asked the question earlier, who is the one who asked? Or rather, who is the one who heard the sound? Yeah. While we describe ourselves, when we introduce ourselves, I'm this, I'm that, but yet when we heard the sound, at least for Ong Chit and Kadao, maybe they are model student, you know. But it seems as though when we really examine and try to recall our own experience, we don't experience in the sense of how we introduce ourselves. But don't jump to the conclusion of no self as yet. Okay? If you do so, then most likely you are merely taking it on faith. That seems to make sense. Yeah? Then you are just accepting what you have heard, which is just knowledge of Sifu's description and analysis based on the Buddha's teaching. Yeah? And also which is in turn based on the Buddha's own experience. Yeah? In the Buddhist teaching, we then take this one step further to examine for ourselves. Much like the way I asked you all the question, to examine on a daily basis, on a regular basis, our own experience. What exactly is this self we're talking about? And if we were to do this over time, we would come to some deeper understanding and perhaps even an insight into what exactly do we identify as self and whether that entity matches with what we think we are referring to. So don't put a full stop as yet. Okay? Don't put a full stop. This is both the strength and also the perplexing part of Buddhism. The strength because it invites us to investigate and examine for ourselves. Perplexing because for many people who come to religion, they hope to just have a fixed answer. They hope to hear the monk to say, it's A, B, C, go. Then you feel, okay, understand or don't understand, but it's okay. Yeah. Buddhism is perplexing in this sense. Yeah, it demands you to understand. It demands you to question, not just accept. Yeah. It requires you, to ask questions. But for now, we need to hold that question first. I hope that the earlier part has planted some seeds of questions. And for many of you who have been attending classes, this is more a regerminating of the questions, because this is a theme that we have been revisiting year in, year out. Second part, karma. What is karma? Karma, simply put, action, intentional action through body, speech, and mind. Usually when we think of the word action, we think of physical action, right? Take action. Yeah. But of course, given the differences in culture between the Indian culture or Buddhist culture versus the Anglo-Saxon culture, the English culture, there's a slight differences in connotation between the word karma and the word action. But we have to make do with what we have, right? So that's why we always have to further qualify, and explain the context that we use this word. Because within the Buddhist teaching, in fact, when we just now I mentioned Indian culture, and then I add on Buddhist culture. Why? Because the way the word karma is used is not purely Indian as well. The Buddha used many Indian terms, terms that was native to him and people around him, but he rejuvenated with a different meaning. Some would say not so much different, but go back to an earlier meaning. So terms like karma, while I think most religion or most Indians would agree that the word karma means action, in Buddhism there's the connotation that it is intentional. There's a connotation that there are different categories of action, as mentioned, body, speech, and mind. And further, there's the implication, whether it's driven by greed, hatred, and delusion. And not just that, it doesn't stop there. That karma, action, is merely the start of a whole series of cascading effects, cause and effect. Usually when you think about karma, we are familiar with cause and effect, right? But which part of karma is cause, which part of it is effect? We usually think, oh, it's the cause, which is not wrong. But actually, it's also the effect. It is firstly cause because as we act, then there's an immediate result that is due to this as cause. Further, it is also cause in terms of a seed that is being planted within us, our mind stream, that over time, given the right conditions, would germinate and then produce results. So we call that, so we have karma, and then we have phala, which is fruit, experience as result, and we call it vipaka. So in this way, it is cause. But at the same time, it is also result. It is result in what sense? It is result as seen from an angle where driven by ignorance, driven by greed, hatred, and delusion, then we act. So greed, hatred, delusion as a cause, then our action is the result. So in Buddhism, when we look at karma, it is not merely a start, nor is it an end. It is merely a part of a continuum. If karma is merely the start, as in the origin, then it seems to imply that there's nothing preceding it, nothing caused it. Then that would violate the principle of causality, isn't it? Yeah. In Buddhism, when we say causality, cause and effect, cause itself is also the result of other causes. Yeah, there are other conditions leading to this cause, and this cause results in some effect, which is not an end by itself, because this in turn becomes the cause or condition for other things. So, in which case then, why these two topics? Yeah, why are these two topics placed together? Is there anything wrong with placing them together? Yeah. Truly speaking, of course, we all know nothing wrong. Yeah, but for many people, when we learn about karma, it seems as though there's an agent as in someone who is doing, yeah, and then producing a result that is experienced by an experiencer, a recipient. So, and the two must be the same. At least that's how we tend to feel it, tend to perceive it. How so? I experience, as the Chinese saying go, 自作自受, right? So you do it, and then you in turn experience it. But if that's the case, then how can you say no self? And if you say no self, then who is the one who is doing? And then in due time, who is the one who is experiencing? So this is where the seeming predicament arises. In a way, this predicament can be resolved quite easily, but it requires the listener to understand the fundamentals of causality. And in a way, the teaching of dependent arising existence and emptiness. Yeah. So consider this. You have action. Yeah. Action itself, as I mentioned earlier, when we understand in its full totality, it doesn't just exist by itself. So it arises, it exists due to conditions. Yeah. And the conditions is not a self. It's not due to a fixed entity that caused it. Okay? But rather due to a plethora of different conditions, then resulting in an impulse plus defilements acting upon it, then action. Okay? So then, with the action, planting a seed, in due time, when there's suitable conditions, this ripen into a result. So this is where it becomes interesting. We tend to, let me see, should I draw? I think so far we don't need to draw. Huh? Oh, actually this is how it looks like. Huh? You all can barely see the, oh, actually not supposed to see anything here because it's actually double layer already. So we usually think person A do something, then in future reborn as person B, and then person B experience the result, right? Correct? Say yes. Maybe no. Yes or no? We usually think person A do something, then in future reborn as person B, then person B experience the result, right? Usually we, typically learn it in this way. So another way to look at it that perhaps would break away from this notion and as a result clear things up about why there's no need for a fixed entity is seed is planted, okay? Who planted it? The question shouldn't be who planted it. It is planted. By what means? Through the aggregates. Merely through the aggregates. It's an aggregate self. So you see, there is this first question. Okay? Leave that question here first. Because the only thing that is planting seed is merely the aggregates that is in action. Okay? So the real question is aggregate self? So hold that question first. Because we usually start off with the wrong premise that I plant the seed. But if you examine it, that all there is just aggregates. So this directly break away from the wrong premise that there's an I planting the seed. Further, in terms of the result, when the seed in due time ripen, instead of thinking, oh, in future there's a I, a separate I, or you reborn as that, there's an I who is reborn as another person, and that person received the result. Rather, it is the seed that ripens into and give rise to another set of 5 aggregates. So the so-called you in future is the result, is the fruit. It is not so much that there's a you in future, there is the same you now, that is the one that is planting the seed and who is receiving the result. No, it's rather that the you, the 5 aggregates, is the result. Can you understand? In much the same way, consider just this life. I often share with students, if we cannot understand this life, don't worry about past life and future life. You know, yeah. Because usually when you think about karma, we tend to think about future life. But when the Buddha talk about karma and results, it's not simply about future life. It's not simply about future life. Like for example, a very handy scenario I often use is, if you don't sleep at night for whatever reasons, okay, maybe you watch TV series, or maybe you have late nights because of work, yeah, or maybe the shifu you volunteer for until 11 plus still ask you to change change poster, adjust this, adjust that. That shifu don't need to sleep, then you also cannot sleep. Then morning still have to wake up for meditation. Then as a result, what happened? The morning you that wake up groggy, yeah, and maybe even have headache, yeah. So is this due to past karma, past life karma, or you are having headache because in the past life maybe you whack people's head? Don't have to think so complicatedly, yeah. Yeah, if you cannot this kind of seafood, then you are lucky lah. Then your good fortune and what to do. So yeah, so as a result, if you have late nights, maybe one late night and you're young, yeah, you're strong, no problem. Yeah. Then two late nights, then 3 late nights, 4 late nights, or then maybe on the fourth or third or fourth morning, when you wake up, or maybe a bit headache, or then the headache is those type that goes all the way back, such that when you see Shifu in the Zoom, don't know which Shifu lah, don't say which one. Somehow you don't see the same Shifu anymore. You see this irritating Shifu. The moment you receive messages, yeah. So what's going on? If we understand karma in this way, then it's quite straightforward, isn't it? The action of not sleeping on time and then causing dehydration as a result, and that in turn causes headache. Yeah, very simple. Very simple. Yeah, and you realize the action of not sleeping on time is not the start by itself. Not by itself, yeah, it's in part due to you encountering some funny sifu who don't sleep, right? But just because you encounter funny sifu who don't sleep, so that is also the correct result. Don't touch anything. Don't touch anything. That one is the teaching aid. That's the teaching aid. Don't move. Nobody move. Nobody move. Don't move away the teaching material. So for those who are online, we just have a Zen moment. Don't know how many of them kai wu. Don't know how many of them get awakened, or as awakened as the glass bottle. So when the glass bottle get tipped over enough, then it has to move down, yeah, by sheer gravity. And when it hits the ground, because now we have the hard ground, not the what you call that, the carpet. So when it hit it, if there's enough force, then it causes structural weakness to appear. And if you were to go into the molecular analysis, then basically the glass crystal cannot maintain its structural strength, and fault lines start to appear, causing as cascading result, what we call shattering. So this result is correct. It's correct. Yeah. Conventionally, we say someone broke it, right? Who broke it? Choi Kwan broke it. Luckily, because why? It's Choi Kwan's bottle. But if I don't tell you it's Choi Kwan's bottle, Any of you look at the bottle and you know it's Choi Kwan's bottle? You all see? You go and look. See which part of it looks like Choi Kwan? Oh, you know it's Choi Kwan's bottle? Maybe she just play along. Maybe it's Louis' bottle. How you know? You see, we human beings are we are very cute, you know. Anything and everything we want to associate with an agent. Yeah. Break bottle, we must think who break the bottle. And then we must think whose bottle got broken. We are so wired to assign agency. We think that that is the right way of looking at things. But let me ask you, if it belonged to Choi Kwan or Louis, hey, hello. As long as nobody walk there, it's safe, right? Precious Dharma, you can kai one, you don't pay attention. You go and pay attention to the glass bottle in a way that doesn't get you enlightened. As long as, you know what I realized but as a result of staying by myself, sometimes I spill things, I just leave it. Yeah. I know some of you thinking, Sifu, you are like that one. You are one. You are, they are very nice. They don't have to say, Sifu, you lazy. No, but sometimes when I spill things, right, I can clean up. But you think I cannot clean up? I can clean up. But I purposely don't clean up. Yeah. There was a time I was carrying I think soya milk. Then brown. Then usually, how do you feel? Big take, right? You feel big take, right? Even though you spill yourself. If it's other people who spill your soya milk, even more big take. Yeah. But if it's yourself, then you big take yourself. Huh? So that day, I caught myself a bit of big take coming up. Then I decided, big take, no matter how big take, right? The soya milk will not come back, right? Then I just, how? So I sat down, and then I put my hand on the soya milk. I put it there. Then I pat the soya milk. Then I feel it. Feel. Then I ask myself, can I accept it? Then after a while, I said, I think I can accept it. Okay, can. If you can accept, then you don't have to claim. But it's when you can accept it, then you can clean. We only clean because, you see, we tend to clean up because we cannot accept it. And if you can accept it, then we think we don't have to clean. If you can accept it, in fact, yes, you don't have to clean, but that's when you can clean because you are cleaning without aversion. Yes, like Cadell. Oh, power, it's not power. Consequences? When this guy power. My Gongli is not so powerful. Whatever sound you heard was from Cadell, not me. You see, we assign agency. Actually, it's just the feedback, you know. But back to his question. Actually, I can really accept. So much so that when I was cutting apple, was it apple? When I was cutting some fruit the other day, so you know the parts you shave off, then usually you just throw, right? So I put it near the sink. Yeah, and today I saw the ants coming around. Yeah, I did it intentionally. So with this sound, there is a series of meaning, yeah, conventional meaning, traveling all the way to someone, then someone heard the sound, and then interpret, and then come up. You see, it's all cause and effect. No. Yeah, but so for me, actually I can. Yeah. But sometimes I also consider, although I can, the students who offered the place for me to stay maybe cannot. But usually for ants, they are quite zedong actually. It's just that we live in different time zone. So if you're patient enough, they will. The ants are not stupid one, you know. We get frustrated only because we cannot understand their actions. We cannot understand their karma. You know, you see the ants, walk here, walk there, right? Then we feel like, why? What's wrong with you? Why? You think they're stupid one? They're not like us human beings, no. Nothing to do, not buy anything, also go shopping side. We are the one who nothing to do. No. They are not so stupid. They only when they smell food, then they will come out. And they will take a sample, go back and leave a trail of the pheromone or whatever. Then after that, any ants that encounter it will detect the gradient and go towards the higher concentration. That's how they know where to go. Yeah, it's not that they WhatsApp each other, Telegram each other, hey, and once the food is cleared up, no more food, right? Or when the food has already reached a point where it has dried up and there's no more scent, they stop coming. I've experienced it, but it takes time. The trouble is we are too impatient. The trouble is we how do I put it? We put a sense of urgency on many things that actually don't matter so much. And based on that, then we look at everything else. And we say, oh, this, why is it so slow? Why is it so slow? Then we say, cannot. It's not that the ants tiaogang want to keep yeah. I mean, you think ants so small though. Yeah. Our speed, they drown. They're swimming inside our speed. And so can you imagine? We just eat and then a piece of we talk and then we took one piece of thing come out. They can have a lot of ants eating for a few hours. But back to that. Yeah, I can accept. But for me, when I sat down with my hand on the soya milk, it's not so much, I wasn't thinking so much about whether I can accept it fermenting and so on, but whether I can accept that I spilled, that the soya milk was spilled. Can I accept that because it's spilled, I cannot drink it anymore? Which brings an interesting question where when you do spill something, I think most people would be at the least a bit minimally frustrated, right? Why? Is it because, as Cadell said, oh, because you spill and then in future, later you will ferment and then ants come? Maybe some of us think in that way, but how about the other part, which is, at the first place, why do we pour the soya milk or whatever drinks you're pouring? Should be to drink or to pour on the floor. In all likelihood, it should be to pour in your mouth, right? But because it didn't pour in your mouth, pour onto the floor instead, then we get frustrated. That's why when you are watering your plants, you don't get frustrated, right? But if you have a kid and the kid take the I don't know how I call it, the can, the water can, and then go and spray all over, then maybe the mother or the father be like, oh, I tell you, water the plants. Wait, water all over the place. The whole balcony wet already, right? People get frustrated because of what? Ultimately, it is always because when things don't go our way. Whose way? Your way or other people's way? Our way. Again, self. So the way we function, you see, the way we function is always somehow intertwined with agency, with the I or the you or the me. Yeah. And as a result, when we look at the teaching of no self and then look at karma, it seems to create a paradox, a predicament. Like, hey, something doesn't make sense here. But what is really happening is because the way we are so, for a long time, conditioned. The condition to look at agency, even when there's none. Just as when we are at home, and if the door suddenly slam or the window suddenly slam, we would be, first of all, maybe a bit shocked because of the sound. But usually we don't stay shocked. Yeah, beyond the shock, then we may have the question, who? Yeah. Of course, if you know that you are alone at home, then you'll be just simply usually jumping the conclusion it should be the wind. But when you then go and check the door and you realize that all the windows are closed, then you realize that there couldn't have been any draft. And because, oh yeah, you had the aircon on, then how come the door slammed? And best thing is a sliding door. Wow. Shifu can come out with a script. You see all those movies when they have the ghost, right? It's always the doors slam, right? They should come out with the sliding door, and that's scarier. That sliding door, how does it slam, you know? Because normal door it can be because of wind, ma. And this is the thing. Yeah, I've seen for myself many years back. Whenever door slam, yeah, if my father is around, yeah, back when my father was around, yeah, what will happen? He will, first thing is who? And then if my mother is around, the confirmed answer is wow. And my mother is hero. She really hero. Yeah, she will just come and put herself. Yeah, why? Because she know my father loves her. So wife bo bian. Actually bo bian. If he wants, also can scold ma. But because love the wife. So you think about that, very interesting, no? If it's my mother who closed the door and slam it versus the kids, if assuming that the sound is the same, why do we make a distinction who slam it? And we respond differently as a result? It's because we attribute agency to the sound where there's no agency actually. Of course, we don't say that if let's say someone really physically push it, right? We cannot ignore the conventional truth that someone did push it. But it's the fact that we attribute an agency to it that makes us and hold on to the agency as most pertinent. That's why we respond in the way we respond. And that's why the next best answer that I often hear from my mom to my dad's inquiry is, Hong lah. You know, my mom's next counter argument, yeah, she can be a lawyer also. She will always say, let the court look at the second evidence, win. We call upon the second. Yeah. And of course, if it's the win, then you know, win, no. Win, you win already, no win. Then how can we do, right? But I think about it, whether it's the win or a person, if the sound produced is exactly the same, why do we make a distinction? But this is part of the problem, you know. We have a tendency to first look for agency, and if not, imply agency. Yeah. How many times have we heard someone, yeah, every time when the person asks, win. Every time win now. Yeah, we cannot take it, you know. So, karma and no self. Yeah. In a simple way, it is precisely because no self, that's why karma can happen. Because no self is about emptiness of the self. It's about how, due to conditions, then there is an entity that we wrongly identify as self. Is there that entity? Yes. Is there the 5 aggregates? Yes. The 5 aggregates are also conditional. And due to conditions, then the aggregates act in a certain way to the point where we say plant a seed. And the seed plus conditions in due time produce a result, whether in this life or in next life. And so even the resultant being, so to speak, is also conditionality. It's also no self. If it's self, then you cannot experience karma. If it's self, you cannot do karma also. Because self, by definition, is permanent, cannot change. I want to end the session by inviting you all to do a long-term exercise. The exercise which is to consider the nature of this self, to examine, to see for yourself, where is the self? Yeah. Because this is the crux of the Buddha's teaching. And if you can penetrate into this, then you would have taken the first step, a very crucial step towards liberation, towards enlightenment. So go and examine. Each time we see something, you hear something, you smell something, you taste something, you touch something, you think of something, ask yourself, who is the one who is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking? Who? Not denying that this is happening, but you go and examine for yourself. See what happens. Then perhaps you will have a deeper understanding, appreciation, yeah, of why, because there's no self, then karma can happen. Okay? Who heard it? 愿消三障诸烦恼，愿得智慧真明了，不愿罪障悉消除，世世常行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛，起立。